Welcome, friends. This morning's presentation is on the 6 Darshananas. Next Sundays will be on an age of transition. We will also, next Sunday, have our roundtable discussions on selected topics. Currently, we are studying the Bhagavad Gita and related notes, starting at about 12:30, and that's for about an hour. And every first and third Sunday we do that. All work of this lodge is aimed at passing on in their purity teachings of the ancient message from the Masters of Wisdom that H.P. Blavatsky named Theosophy. It is left up to each of us in our own way to assimilate this powerful and common sense message, thus making it a living power in our lives. We all have a role in ushering in the golden age or postponing it with our every thought and action. Please help with your attendance on Sundays at 11 a.m. or whatever you can do to help keep alive and thriving these uplifting teachings that are necessary for the future of humanity. We are guided by the declaration of the United Lodge of Theosophists that Robert Crosby used in 1909 to launch ULT, thereby returning the teachings to the lines laid down by the great founders of the Theosophical movement through their messenger, H.P. Blavatsky, and her staunch colleague, William Q. George. To this end, we work independently and with each other to achieve a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. We hold that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. We have neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers. The sole bond between its associates is the furtherance of unity. We regard as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And we welcome to our association all those who are in accord with the purposes in our declaration and who desire to fit themselves to study, by study and otherwise, to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. Our reading today is from the Bhagavad Gita, here on page 105, on devotion by means of separation from the three qualities, chapter 15. Krishna is speaking. Men say that the Ashwatha, the eternal sacred tree, grows with its roots above and its branches below, and the leaves of which are the Vedas. He who knows this knows the Vedas, its branches growing out of the three qualities, with the objects of sense as the lesser shoots, spread forth, some above and some below, and those roots which ramify below in the regions of mankind are the connecting bonds of action. Its form is not thus understood by men. It has no beginning, nor can its present constitution be understood, nor has it any end. When one hath hewn down with the strong axe of dispassion this Ashwatha tree, with its deeply embedded roots, then that place is to be sought after from which those who there take refuge nevermore return to rebirth, for it is the primeval spirit from which floweth a never-ending stream of conditioned existence. Those who are free from pride of self and whose discrimination is perfected, who have prevailed over the fault of attachment to action, who are constantly employed in devotion to meditation upon the Supreme Spirit, who have renounced desire and are free from influence of the opposites known as pleasure and pain, are undiluted, and proceed to that place which endureth forever. Neither the sun, nor the moon, nor the fire enlighteneth that place. From it there is no return. It is my supreme abode. And now for today's talk.
Good morning and welcome, friends. This is a very detailed talk, and we can sort of barely touch upon all of it, but HPB has explanations for the darshanas in the the Theosophical Glossary, and also they're discussed under the 6 branches of Indian philosophy, and she calls them actually demonstrations. So you can look it up in the other books as well. Demonstrations. Demonstrations. And these individuals are all rishis. I could not fit it in. It would have made it askewed. So why should we talk about it? Why is it important to talk about it? Because this is an age of logic and induction. And we analyze everything in beliefs, ideas, any subject that we discuss is done through logical systems. And these 6 schools of philosophy are based on logical explanations. One thing about them is that they each look at our universe, the world, from one angle only. So they're not trying to compete with one another, because each one adds to the one previous to it. In other words, to understand it in its completeness, we have to understand all of the 6 ways of looking at our universe, the world. But you can see that there's only 6 of them. The 7th is missing. Why? We'll get to it. So we just read in the reading that those who know the Vedas then know the truth. And these 6 limbs of the Vedas are actually looked at from the Western world as putting forth unproven statements. Whereas these, through logic and discussion, can be understood. That's why it is very popular to discuss them, and we need to know what they are. However, as said, even after studying all 6, we will not have a complete picture of our universe. And HPB says these demonstrations can be looked at like 6 cardinal points, and each one of them presents a view of the truth from that perspective only, but it is complete. And 6 taken together gives us a better understanding of our cosmos. The 7th darshana is the genuine knowledge given from the masters or rishis to their chelas only, because they have prepared themselves to receive it. this is called Guhya. In the secret doctrine, Gupta Vidya. So we need to understand that the terms is the same, but it's just different words for different peoples in the world. So the same universe, same world process, the same panorama is looked at from one side only. So it's just like looking at a building, say from the north, then from the east, then from the south and west, and then going above and looking at it from the top down and from the foundation up. But what is missing in that picture is we have to go into the building and look at its majesty from inside in order to know what it really is. And that bit is what? This esoteric demonstration, which we can get at from the secret doctrine. But not only that, we have talked about it. We talked about it when we talked about the 3 approaches through the mind. We talked about Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, which is one of these that leads us to the Gupta Vidya. We also discussed Pythagoras' school, which was exactly the same process then, except that we don't do it that way anymore. It's a different process, but it's the same thing that we follow on our own with that intuitive power that is ours. So, what it is stated is that there is a natural bridge that connects each one of these schools to all the others. And if we miss it, then we have missed the point altogether, because neither will we be able to put it together or get to the truth at all. So, the natural bridges join these 6 schools of philosophy to their hidden soul, which of course is this esoteric Guhya. And we know that all exoteric philosophies are concerned with our universe from spirit matter or Purusha Prakriti. So all of these, the spirit matter, or Purusha Prakriti. What does this say to us? We have come down from the absolute, from the unmanifested to manifested, because this indicates differentiation. Where does the secret doctrine start? It starts with the absolute, then it goes to the unmanifested logos, and then comes to the manifested logos. But all of the world's religions start right from there, from the third, not from the first. So it says that there is an interlacing of these 6 schools, because 3 of them, the first 3, look at our world from the matter side, in other words, from the physical aspect, matter, substance. The other 3 look at it from the level of consciousness, and we need to understand that. So the first one is Vaisheshika, and it was put forth by Rishi Kanada. And these are very, very old writings. And the second one is Nyaya, put forth by Rishi Gautama. Third is Purva Mimamsa, put forward by Rishi Jaimani. And the fourth is Sankhya, put forth by Rishi Kapila. And of course, we are very familiar with Patanjali's yoga aphorisms. And then 6 is Vedanta, and its writer was Badarayana. Now, in the glossary, HPB explains under Mimamsa that there is two of them. And the last one belongs to the Vedanta. It's the third of the writings in the section that was given by Vyasa. Now, what is it that joins this all together, this Guhya, the seventh? In the Secret Doctrine, HPV says, Fohat is at present unknown to Western speculation. And this is a direct quote from Secret Doctrine 1, page 16. It is called Daivi Prakriti. Daivi Prakriti. It is the light in and through which Krishna, the unborn, takes name and form. It doesn't have a form, but through this light it takes form and a name. The highest mystery of human consciousness, as also the grand and sacred mystery of avatars or incarnations, is hidden in this light, which the Gita describes as, we just read, Krishna's superior nature. And again, Krishna refers to it when he says, I am born through my own Maya, the mystic power of self-ideation, the eternal thought in the eternal mind. So the viewpoint or demonstration presented by this light can only be acquired by first gathering these 6 branches of philosophy and then leaving these methods of learning and turning inward. And we have already covered that when we turn inward, the recommended route is self-energization, self-purification, and self-discipline. And today, we're not discussing this 7th one, and as said, all of these sections were discussed before. Now, turning to the 6 demonstrations, we just explained what they are. So, putting the 6 together moves us towards understanding the world process and also emancipation. But they are not antagonistic to one another, as said before. And just to give one example, Vedanta Sutras, which belongs to the 6th branch of the demonstration, are age-old, and they're the oldest. But to remind ourselves that they have passed through a long evolution, and what is here today is not the unaltered or unadulterated facts which were originally presented. Interpolation and withdrawal in large measure has left their marks on each and every system that we have put up here. So in order to understand that they are not antagonistic, here's one example. The Vedanta Sutras show the fallacies of the Vaisheshika system, not to overthrow that system, but to supplement it. So this supplements the first one. So when we turn to that first system, the Vaisheshika system, was brought into the universe by Rishi Kanada, we find that the system, the knowledge, the object of knowledge is padarka, which is on the board under Vaisheshika. Padarkas are predicates. They are 7 in number. These predicates are listed and there are 7, as you can see. So, dravya, substance, we're now referring to substance metaphysically. because that substance is neither made or destroyed. Uncaused and eternal it is. So what are we referring to here? What is metaphysical here? When HPB writes substance in the Secret Doctrine, it is not the same as matter, is it? Matter is its differentiated form, whereas what upholds it is the homogeneity behind the heterogeneity. In other words, before division occurs, matter is present. It never is destroyed. And I think in the Secret Doctrine she calls it mula prakriti, and the other side of the equation is parabrahmam. So those two, she says, are the two sides of the coin. They are coeval. One without the other does not exist, because one gives rise to our consciousness, which is our spiritual side, and the other one, the substance side, becomes prakriti, and then through differentiation, matter in our universe. So they are coeval. So there are 5 atomic substances and 4 pervasive substances. And the atomic substances are earth, water, fire, air, and manas. And the pervasive, time, space, akasha, and atma. And of course we know of all those, atma is the most important aspect. So, the second one is referring to guna or gunatvam, which is qualitativeness. And there are 24 of them listed and enumerated. But 5 of these we will name. They are belonging to all substances, and number, dimension, individuality, conjunction, and disjunction is the characteristic of all substances that we have just listed. Karma is activity. It is 5-fold, and it is described as motion, throwing up, throwing down. In other words, what we throw up comes down. What we, like a ball, when we hit the floor, it comes up. Throwing up, contracting, making it smaller, expanding, making it larger, and of course, just going. And cause and effect is examined under this category, and it is very interesting for everyone to read it. The 4th is samanya, the unifying common basis, and the relation of one to its genus, sometimes translated as generality. It's the opposite of induction. Vishesha is the opposite of the 4th and is called particularity, and we will refer to it in our introduction. And what constitutes an entity or individuality, of course, falls in this category. Samvaya or inherence, through which the set cause and effect abides one in the other, because we talked about this last weekend in our roundtable, that there is someone that is doing it, and so the act and the actor are in it, and it is called karma and karta, deed and the doer. And lastly, abhava, non-existence, referring to the condition before something comes into existence and its withdrawal or elimination. In other words, nothing is lost, it just disintegrates to its original form before it came into manifestation. So, the knowledge of these predicates results ultimately in emancipation, because it shows us how the universe comes into existence mechanically because of these, and runs mechanically because of them, and dissolves mechanically because of them. So if we learn the mechanics of the universe, we are on the way to freeing ourselves from the great tyranny of that great machine. Nyaya is the second one. It's the this here, Nyaya. In order to learn how these mechanics work and how our universe works as a result of it, we must seek knowledge. This is brought about by Gautama Buddha, Gautama Sankyamuni at the beginning, but of course you know that he became a Buddha. And the essence of knowledge, we're told, lies in the proofs of cosmic ultimates, to obtain which one must learn about 16 categories, which are all listed. 16 categories. And we'll just say them. Pramana, proofs. Prameya, objects of proof. Samsaya, doubt. Prayojana, purpose. Drishtanta, example. Siddhanta, proven knowledge. Avayava, premises. Tarka, logical reasoning. Nirnaya, conclusion. Vada, discussion. Jalpa, wrangling or arguing. And Vitanda, cavilling or quibbling. Hetvapasa, fallacies. Chala, argument, quibbling. Jati, futile analogies. And Nigrahasana, unfitness for arguing, which is always to be regarded as an occasion not desirable. So an inquirer or a student must first acquaint himself or herself with these 16 categories, because what we can do for ourselves we must do, because we have those chelas or gurus all awaiting for our fitness so that we can be directly taught. And this is the system we have to go through and obtain this knowledge for ourselves first, because we don't want to waste their time in teaching us things that we can learn for ourselves. We don't have time to go into all of them, but we will discuss the first two, Paramana and Parameya. So the ways of gaining proofs are 4, and they bring right knowledge about 12 things. And the 12 things are Atma, the self, Sharira, the body, Indriya, the senses, Artha, objects on sense, Buddhi, intuition, Manas, the mind, Pravriti, going forth, Dosha, fault, Pratyabhava, change of existing nature, in other words, transmigration, Phala, fruit thereof, which is of course similar or the same equivalent of karma, Dukh, suffering, Apavarga, emancipation therefrom. And when we look into the 4 ways of gaining proof, we get knowledge which is the right knowledge about these 12 that we have listed here. So by what means can these proofs be obtained? Pratyasha, perception. Anuman, inference. Upamuna, comparison. And Shabda, the word. In other words, recorded knowledge. Perception implies use of the senses, which is to be aided by inference, which is a mental process, of course, in which the law of analogy or correspondence or comparison should be used, and seeking this comparison, the record of the seers or sages should be utilized. Of course, the word means the word of someone who really knows. Number 3 is Purva Mimamsa. I think we should read this from here first. Glossary. Mimamsa. The school of philosophy, one of the 6 in India. There are 2 Mimamsa, the older and the younger. The first, the Purva Mimamsa, was founded by Jaimani and the later, or Uttara Mimamsa, by the Vyasa, and is now called the Vedanta school. Sankaracharya was the most prominent apostle of the after Vyasa. The Vedanta school is the oldest of all the 6 darshana or demonstrations. And the Shat Darshana have all a starting point in common and maintain that ex nihilo nihil fit. So here she's telling us what that the starting point common to all of them is, and that ex nihilo nihil fit means nothing comes from nothing. In other words, where the religious concepts or philosophy of the world starts at this 3rd level, the 2 higher ones are totally eliminated from the view. We cannot reach at the truth without those 2 considerations. And she's telling us that substance is never not there, and spirit is never not there, because the 2 exist as co-equal to one another, Parabrahm and Mula Prakriti. So here it is ex nihilo nihil fit, so that substance is never destroyed, it's always there. It just differentiates and brings out the universe, and it then layer by layer is absorbed into its original form. So what that also shows to this student, that we have really put layer after layer of wrong thinking, wrong ideology perhaps, wrong action which follows from that, and that kind of puts a veil in front of our eye. We cannot get at the truth. So what we have to do is remove the veil 1 layer at a time. And I think these 6 perhaps refer to that process as well. Purvamimamsa, of course, is the 3rd or the last one of the viewpoints that look at our world from substance or material side of it. The interpretation must be examined before we turn to the spirit defining schools called Vedanta as an end to knowledge. It is called Karma Mimamsa because this record explains the method of rituals and the meaning of material events. The sutras require expansion through perception and inference because it talks about dharma, law or duty of the ordinary life. Therefore, Jaimani sutras deal with topics, and there's about 1,000 of them, and for each particular one, a Vedic text, in other words, each topic is presented and a Vedic text is offered to remove the doubt. Then follows the setting down the prima facie view and its refutation, and that is the first view without discussion or looking at anything else. That's the prima facie one. And so when through that process of discussion with logic, all of the doubt is removed, and what remains is the proven view, which is Siddhanta. So these 5 limbs have to be applied to anything that we have a doubt about and discussed from a philosophical perspective with eliminating the doubt from it. And they said that there's a Vedic text for each one of these topics. So then it says that this using intellectual capacities, approaching life intelligently and not just believing in something is the root of removing doubt from ourselves. Then of course we go into Sankhya, the philosophy of numbers. As HBB said, this is the only exact science left in our age. But when you go to this philosophy, it says that the philosophy of numbers or numerical demonstrations in its original form that was given to the world does not really exist today, because the public has lost it, it says, and what is left only to us is analytical metaphysics about things. So in this section there are 25 tattvas. Forces. Forces. And these are forces of nature, all in various degrees. So, just like the first one, Vaisheshika school, this one is also called an atomistic school, because it demonstrates this viewpoint from the spirit, while the first one does it from the material side. And it says that there are 24 elements modified by 3 gunas, and it teaches us that pradhana, primordial homogeneous matter, or the self-transformation of nature, and the eternity of the human egos. So look at the difference already. We are moving from substance to our spiritual side. It shows us the 24 elements modified by the 3 gunas. And what are the gunas? We always refer to them: sattva, raja, and tamas. And it teaches that pradhana, this is in the Secret Doctrine, is homogeneous substance, primordial homogeneous substance, and it self-transforms, because it out of itself comes the next level, and from that, out of the second level comes the third. So that is what we're talking about here. And it is self-transformation of nature, and it teaches us the eternity of the human ego. Now, HVV explains that eternity is not in the Christian sense. In other words, only in that mantra, beginning and the end is not known, but it has a beginning and it has an end for that yuga. But in the long scheme of things, there will come another cycle with a higher evolution process. Once we learn through the 7 that we go through in each age, then the next one will evolve, she tells us in the Secret Doctrine, at a higher level. So this school also teaches permanent prevention of threefold pain and the supreme purpose of life. The Purusha, as we all know, or spirit, is free from all association. It is not bound by karma, time or space, but it seems bound because it says that the bondage arises in buddhi through aviveka, non-discrimination. And it is non-discrimination. Non-discrimination. And look what it is in, buddhi. And buddhi is our highest spiritual soul. But in the Secret Doctrine it is explained that some part of it is still material, obviously. That is what it is telling us. The Purusha is felt by us to be bound because his seeming indifference as a spectator to all the changes taking place in Prakriti, Buddhi, etc. So, the bondage is but the reflection on him or it of the impurities seen in matter. These three kinds of pain, the spiritual, mental, and bodily, produce three kinds of bondage, and therefore there are three ways of relief from karma and existence in form, and from repose in one's own self. The whole process of the Sankhya is to seek for the number one, the one Purusha, who is at the core of every individual, and we have talked about the light in the heart and how we are to move from the threshold from this side to the other. The original treatise to be studied, it says, is Tattva Samasa, and it is of greater value to us than Sankhya Pravachana Sutra. So this is Tattva Samasa. And we recommend it to read it. And Yoga of Patanjali is the fifth, and we're all familiar with it. And having found the Purusha behind the 24 forces of nature, we must seek for the human spiritual being and find union through yoga with the universal aspect of that light, which is in our own heart. So a little bit of confusion exists as to if there is one Purusha or many, but we explained this many times. There's only one Purusha, but different rays of that Purusha in each heart. So the Yoga Sutras continue the line of advance from Purvamimamsa and shows us how to become a Superman, a universal potency. Such a Jivan Mukta or master is called Dharma Mega, and just like the rain comes from the clouds, so does love, virtue, and instruction comes eventually from a guru, which is assigned to each human soul because of that lineage that the guru has, which is similar or identical to the one that we have. So, in this fifth, the disciple catches a glimpse of the universal self, the spiritual universe, boundless and timeless. The last one is summation of knowledge, just as the first two demonstrations in the material side end with Purvamimamsa. The last one, Vedanta, completes the two that start the spiritual journey of us. Uttaramimamsa is the one that brought it out, and the author of Vedanta Sutras, Badarayana, is known as Vyasa. HBB says that there were many of them. Puranas mentioned 28, but she says that there were many more. And just to complete this section, they are known as, today they are known as Dvaita, Vishishtatvaita, and Advaita. And there are three of the rishis, again, Sankaracharya being the last one, and his Advaita emphasizes the absolute identity of the human spirit being and the universal self. Man, in his innate nature, is the indivisible whole, all else being part and parcel of himself in his ultimate aspect. And so now we will stop here and open it for questions. Yeah.
So these 6 demonstrations, you walk through them. Is it recommended that one should study them in order? How should one approach this? And can you please tie it to how secret doctrine, does it touch on everything? Is it the you put the word before I forget, but is it the one that ties it all together? Can you talk a bit about how
it is.
HPB's teachings tie to this?
Yes. Okay. These 6 schools, we said, each one looks at the world process from one angle. Say we're looking at it from the north. All the rest is not there. And the next one looks at it from the south. And even if you took a location and looked at it from a physical viewpoint, you would see differences when you look at something from one angle and then from the other angle. So the 6 together are additive, in other words. They're not against one another. They add to each other. They're additive. But even all of it together cannot give us a complete view. What did we say? Because the esoteric is missing. And we said that that is like walking into the building and looking at it from the inside out. What does HPB do with her secret doctrine, the key, and especially the voice of the silence? She says you have to go inside of yourself. And we listed 3 things you have to do to accomplish it. You have to become, in other words, self-reliant, self-sufficient, self-supportive, self-initiation for obtaining that knowledge, which requires tremendous discipline. And we said that Pythagoras taught that to his students, and we gave that talk for that reason, that discipline has to be achieved by each one of us on our own today. If we don't want to do it all together, then we have to do it on our own. So this process brings you to the door of the esoteric, but that is all it does. And you then have to turn inside. Where is this knowledge? It's inside of you. This is brought you to the door. Now you have to pass the threshold of the heart and remove that iron bar. And we said there was one criteria more important than anything else, because you cannot approach it without that step. What was it? Egoism. That personal, that selfish, that divisional, because look, they're not divided. Neither are the Dayan Chohanic hosts. They're not divided. Each one perhaps is like one of these schools. They represent one aspect of you because they give you a principle. Each one of us give us principles. So, but what is the 7th? It's the synthesis of the 6, and that's within you. No one can tell that to you because it is never ever written, neither in the Kabbalah, in the Christian text, in Muslim text. Nothing is written about that subject, but HPB gave out an approximation of it as best suited to the Western world as she could to guide us in that direction. But the voice of the silence, the secret doctrine, do not impart their knowledge to us. You have to truly study it. There's a pattern in those books, but you have to figure out what they are. Because once you figure it out, wow, it opens the whole vista in front of you, and then you know how everything is linked in those books. When you read it at face value, they all look disjointed, but they aren't. There is the underneath that upholds the surface, and you have to get to the underneath. And that is the esoteric philosophy. Yeah, self-energization, self-purification, and self-discipline is needed for the esoteric science to become available, because it's inside of each human soul and not external to ourselves. So you have to do all that work. And we said that these are preliminaries, because who's going to come and teach us these if we don't teach it to ourselves? Nobody. They're all available to every human soul. We can study it, we can learn from it, and if we don't want to go here, then we can go to the secret doctrine. But I think to learn logic is extremely important, because if the premise is wrong, the result will be wrong. And a lot of students do not use logic. They get stuck on something, all of us. None of us are exception to this rule. We get stuck on something and we're not looking at it from a logical viewpoint. We're looking at it from where? Feeling point. And she says feelings will mislead us every time. We have to use logic. And logic has to be based on these premises that provide correct thinking. And if we don't know what they are, well, then how are we supposed to come to a right conclusion about things is a difficulty. So HPV says, you talk to anyone who's familiar with this, and depending which one they follow, they will prove themselves to you correctly. They know how to logically discuss the philosophy from that viewpoint, because that's what they follow. But what about the 5 others? So she says we have to learn to defend the philosophy from every aspect. We have to look at it from the east, from the west, from the north, south, up, down, and then go inside the building to see what the building really looks like. Because we have put all of those layers of misinformation, wrong ideology, not understanding our own nature, because, you know, we're all born in some area to some local culture, and we are biased when we come to this philosophy of HPV's books. We're all embedded in something, and so what she tells us is, what are we doing? We're going to erase everything from the mind or the brain and re-educate ourselves. That's not an easy process when we have been thinking in a particular way. So, I don't know what the other part of your question was. You wanted the esoteric science, and HPV actually does the comparison for us. That is why this student loves that book, because she shows you the correct part in the religious verses, and then she tells you this is the incorrect interpretation. And she tells us somewhere in one of those articles that, or in the Secret Doctrine perhaps, that religion misinterpreted the statements that were given to them by the Kabbalists at that time, because they didn't, first of all, give them the real stuff. But she says what the church has done is concretized it as truth and will not change its position on the misinterpretation that they did. So she is doing it in the book. She says it will be objected to, but she says it's her duty to show us where the error had crept in through the misinterpretation. Yes?
So in Secret Doctrine, the student is not thoroughly knowledgeable of the contents of the book, but based on experience, we emphasize Patanjali's yoga aphorisms more than, let's say, Nyaya or Purva Mimamsa. Those are more foreign terms to this student. But is it your understanding that the Secret Doctrine and this philosophy covers all of these in some aspects? And
Yeah.
I guess tied to that, why are we, for example, emphasizing Patanjali's yoga aphorisms more than some of the others?
Because that's the last one that kind of brings you to the door of self, this self, and shows you how to go to this self. You see the difference, right? Because when you look at the circle, we said there's the center here, right? And Gita says that's my supreme self, right? But first, you have to join your understanding to where? To your higher mind. You have to invite that individuality to come in and guide your steps. This is not going to automatically take place. We have a lot of cleansing to do, correct? So, lower manas, there's steps in this process. Has to give the jurisdiction to the higher manas to come in and do the work. Higher manas. There is only one manas, but it works in two different ways. So that's your work right here. A lot of people are very intellectual, very smart, very smart. They can discuss anything with you and make you look like an idiot or that you don't know what you're talking about. But they're looking at it from that perspective, intellectual perspective. She says you can become an intellectual giant with no spirituality left in you because you're spending all of your time expanding your brain power, in other words. It doesn't work that way with this philosophy. Patanjali's yoga aphorisms take you to the threshold of your individuality. And from there, you're going to go where? There is centers. Your heart is connected to all these centers. The solar system has a center. The solar system is attracted to Pleiades. It was on PBS. Pleiades has a center. Pleiades is attracted to another center. So you go from center to center to center to center. You have 7 principles in you. So you have to reach to Atma. But Atma is a general principle. So it obviously corresponds with the logoic center in this student's mind. But I haven't seen it written anywhere and I can't confirm it. But my understanding has to take me all the way to these places internally. That's why we go to yoga, Patanjali's yoga aphorism, because he's showing you the inner way. Because this is from the perspective of consciousness, which is your spiritual side. And it shows you how to overcome this difference here through meditation. But meditation is the summation of that concentration, right? We need to learn how to concentrate first, then we have to contemplate and keep the mind on one object or subject internally for the duration that you wish to look at that yourself internally. And then after contemplation, we can meditate. It might not come in one lifetime. It might take more than one. But meditation is samadhi. And HPB, in the Voice of the Silence, tells us that's the highest condition that we can reach in a body, samadhi. So obviously, you become one with the universal aspect of yourself. Is not such an easy thing to accomplish before going through all this. So HPB does not tell us all these. She gives us a comparative religion study in the secret doctrine, shows what is real in each religion. She says we must accept truth where it is, but not to give in to what is not real or truth. So she shows you where it is. This student cannot do that for herself yet. So secret doctrine is a safe place for this student to go to because she has done it. And since it comes from the Master's Lord, she never said it's hers. It's reliable. It's the most reliable book on earth. So that's where this student goes for this comparison. Because she explains everything in that book. We just said that homogeneous primordial, homogeneous substance, Prakriti has to differentiate 7 times. to bring about earth, air, water, fire, and in Muslims manas is the fifth one. So, yeah, we have to understand how all that comes about and what our mind is co-evil with in universal, which is Mahat. Well, thank you. Please join us next week for
The age of transition.
for the transition age. The topic is transition age. Thank you.